I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Damn Fantasy Podcast. Happy holidays. We got a holiday edition coming at you for the NFL Fantasy Football Playoff / Championship round, wherever you're at. We're here to help you get through there and get that dub. We are presented by Stadium Rant. They're putting out all kinds of great content outside of just these videos that you're watching here with us. Shows dropping just about every night of the week, as well as plenty of articles and other content that you can tap into via podcast or whatever medium you're looking for. My name is Dan, and of course, I've got Trevor with me here. As always, it's good to get back into this thing, and I'm glad we've got some playoff teams to talk about tonight.
Absolutely. Had a couple sweats there Monday night. Needed a little bit Christian Watson on that last drive. I got it. Nailed it. On to the semifinals we go. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help you all get ready for the semifinals. A lot of weather out there this weekend. A lot of quarterback drama with some being replaced and Jalen Hurts on the injury report. Lamar Jackson might not be back yet. A lot to sift through here tonight. And as always, if you are here, hit that like button and drop any start-sit questions you might have in the chat. We're welcome. We will welcome that and try to answer all of them as we go.
Absolutely. This injury report is kind of coming at a pretty rough time, especially with a lot of the big names on here. Now, it's not as bad as what we saw like maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Yep. The week Cooper Kupp went down, that was a huge landslide of injuries. But this one, it's tough. It looks like it's all quarterbacks with a couple running backs. And maybe that's good for some of you guys who, have one of these two running backs in these systems, like what we'll talk about with that Packers backfield. But man, that's just a really tough blow for some of these guys. And, we'll just get right into it, starting with Jalen Hurts. I mean, that's the big one.
It is the big one. He helped you get here. He has a huge week last week. He ends up a top 3 quarterback, which is why the thumbnail is what it is, right? Mahomes, right. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, these studs that got you here, those are the guys you want to rely on. And there's a lot of semifinal teams out there that might not have Jalen Hurts to rely on this week.
And that's a tough blow. It's his throwing shoulder that he was kind of slammed down on during one of those scrambles against the Chicago Bears, and ends up finishing the game through a nice bomb of a touchdown as well. Yeah, kind of like what Josh Allen did when he hurt that UCL, just slung it down anyway. I mean, these guys are gritty, right? So, it's tough seeing Jalen Hurts go down with what might be a game where he's not available to you at this stage in the fantasy football season. And that's a tough blow for anybody because, like what you just said, they got him here. But if you're looking at it from the team perspective, the team has already clinched a playoff spot. The Cowboys lost, so they're really just a win away from clinching that division. So all signs are really pointing to Sirianni. He should take the safe route with their franchise quarterback, which is good news for them, right? It gets to, Jalen Hurts gets to rehab that shoulder a little bit, take a week off, whatever. But we're here like, what do we do now?
Yeah, not great for us. AC joint is what he's spraying there. And I think I heard something that the Eagles could potentially lose out and still get the 1 seed if other things happened. I don't think they push it this week, and we'll definitely talk about Gardner Minshew, the backup quarterback there in Philadelphia, and how that could affect, not only the quarterback position, but what about A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders, some of these other guys that we're really relying on in the playoffs for fantasy football. This one and the Jonathan Taylor news, that's the 2 big ones that hurt the most in this moment. Some of these other ones that we're going to touch on are not nearly as impactful. A guy, Lamar Jackson, right? He's been out for a couple weeks. You might be holding out hope. Doesn't sound like we're going to get him back this week, though.
Unfortunately not. I mean, this is what the 8th straight practice that he's missed with this
Yeah.
PCL injury. They're going to try and take it easy on him. At this point, they kind of blew their division lead that they had. They still get to face the Bengals at the end of the season. But it just seems like they're taking the cautious approach that he can be 100%. They rushed him back a little bit early last year. And I think John Harbaugh is kind of learning from that mistake that they made, which is a bummer because he's so dynamic and so incredible from a fantasy, not just a football perspective, but from a fantasy football perspective, where he can blow up. I mean, that ceiling is as high as it gets.
And Huntley has not stepped in like he did last year.
Not
near
like
as
last
much.
year.
So J.K. Dobbins, though, has stepped up over 100 yards last couple of weeks for the Ravens. But that's about it there for the Ravens. And really, Lamar not being there, he probably helped you get, at least a good record this year.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we just didn't see the Lamar, at least not the Lamar I expected to see this year, as I had him as my QB2. Had a hot start and really cool off, and then now dealing with the knee sprain. Another guy, again, definitely not a guy you're probably looking at playing this week, but he could be impactful to guys like Treylon Burks, and we'll see how it could impact a guy like Derrick Henry, and that's Ryan Tannehill. Looks like he's going to miss this week. Looks like it's going to be Malik Willis season once again, as the Titans went ahead and picked up Josh Dobbs off the Lions practice squad this week. Oh, yeah.
No, it's really too bad. And luckily for Tennessee and anyone that's rostering their offensive players, they're playing the Houston Texans, right? They put up a fight against Kansas City, but they still allowed 30 points, and they allowed Jerick McKinnon to put up one of the 2 best games that he's had all season long. So, I mean, there's going to be plenty of opportunities, I think, for some of these other guys. But it's just a matter of what kind of offense are they running, right? What strategy is Vrabel going to implement against these guys? The Titans have a lot to play for right now, right? The Jaguars are just game back on them.
They're right behind them.
They're hot on their heel.
I was texting with our Titans Tilt podcast host, James Schmeitz, and you can check that out on NFL on Stadium Rant podcast on Spotify. And I was just asking, like, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen this week? He says they're going to wait on Ryan Tannehill and wait until that Jaguars game. They expect they could probably win the next couple of games just on the backup Derrick Henry. So if you got Derrick Henry, maybe trending in the right direction. Last time they played Houston, Malik Willis was the quarterback, and we all know how Derrick Henry went out for over 200 yards. So Derrick Henry up. Chigo Okonkwo, who has come on strong last couple weeks, I would expect a downfall for him. Treylon Burks, who potentially will be back this week, I would expect to downgrade his abilities a little bit with Malik in there. Malik threw 1 pass in the second half against Houston last time these guys played. Not really a lot of fantasy value there in Tennessee with Malik Willis at the helm this week.
At least not this year. I don't know. It just seems like Vrabel doesn't really trust him to throw the ball. No. He's gotten a couple running looks, but it just never bared any fruit because he usually is turning the ball over in one of these games as well. So just tough break for the rookie right now. We'll see if he can progress that a little bit into next year. But Tannehill is the clear QB1, and the offense runs way better when he's a part of it for sure. In some running back news, A.J. Dillon has cleared concussion protocol. That was something that knocked him out of last Monday's game. I was a little bit concerned about whether or not he was going to be able to play. I'm starting Aaron Jones on one of my playoff teams, so we'll get to that point here in a minute. But man, that A.J. Dillon's really been popping off the last couple of weeks. So if you held on to him and you waited, you're kind of reaping the rewards right now.
Yeah, a little tilting as an Aaron Jones manager, right? Because A.J. Dillon's getting all the work inside the 10-yard line.
Right.
But really, this Packers offense has started to click a little bit around these two guys and really started utilizing both of them. So for him to clear concussion protocol, I think he's absolutely in play this week going into they're the Monday night. No, they're Christmas Day game this week.
Yep, that noon game against the Dolphins.
That's right. Definitely in play this week. Jonathan Taylor has hit the IR. So if you remember way back, what feels like way back, on Saturday at noon. First game, the Colts, destroyed the Vikings for one half of the game, and then the Vikings come roaring back. But Jonathan Taylor, early in that game, went out with an injury, and he has hit the IR. He will be done for the season. Another big blow during playoff time.
Yeah, that's a huge bummer, especially for anyone. I mean, he was likely the consensus number 1 overall pick, right? And he's already missed some time in the middle of the season, and now, if you had a team that was solid enough around him to get you to the playoffs, you're missing him again. It seems like when you need him most, he's not there, which is nothing he can control, of course. I mean, you want him to be healthy at the end of the day, but just a tough situation to deal with. And none of those backups are really doing it for me since they traded Nyheim Hines. Zach Moss, really, I don't trust him enough to really shoulder the load. And Deion Jackson's another one of those guys that, he can boom from time to time, but nothing consistent really has given me any kind of vote of confidence.
Yeah, I ended up picking up a Deion Jackson, and really in what has become a desperate situation because Dante Foreman has lost quite a bit of work to Chuba Hubbard. So who do you think? Would you start Dante or Deion Jackson this week? Because that's what I'm staring at. I went ahead and picked up Deion just in case, right?
Right.
What am I going to do? But I'm staring that down in a semifinal matchup this week. What says you? Who would you start between those two guys?
That's tough. I mean, if you're just looking at the matchups for those two guys, I think Foreman has the better matchup going against that Lions defense. They tend to be a little more loose in the defensive side of things. And then for the Colts, I mean, they're facing the Chargers, which their run defense nothing to write home about by any means. So, maybe I go Deion Jackson in this instance, just because I think you're really not taking that big of a leap from the Lions to the Chargers. And I think Jackson has a better opportunity to get more of the workload just based on the splits that we've seen the last couple of weeks with Hubbard and Foreman.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. And now they've benched their quarterback. Nick Foles will be in the game. And it's the Monday night game, right? It kind of brings a little bit of extra. You get the last one, the last chance.
You get some juice.
Maybe I'll get, last chance to score it in there. Khalil Herbert is back off the IR. So a little bit of I think this hurts David Montgomery's value this week. Herbert will come in. He'll probably have 10 to 12 touches. And that's at least what he was getting before he hit the IR. Don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think he'll get some more touches and really deflate Montgomery's fantasy value?
I didn't have Montgomery's fantasy value too high to begin with because of who they're playing, the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills did get torched last week by the Dolphins. I think they put up something like 8 yards a carry. So, I mean, that Bears offense, they primarily run the ball. So, maybe they do gash them a little bit here and there. But it's been hard to kind of gauge what that Bills defense is going to allow you to do in the run game. As far as Khalil Herbert, they have nothing to lose. I mean, the Bears are already eliminated. They're facing the number 2 overall team in the NFL right now, just based on record, right? Because the Eagles are sitting at number 1 there. So, I mean, you're looking at it. Am I starting Khalil Herbert? Probably not this week. You're facing the Buffalo Bills. Am I worried about David Montgomery? Maybe slightly, but at this point, I don't think Montgomery is really getting slotted anywhere more than a flex in your lineup, just based on what he's been able to do this year.
Yeah, that's right, and I'm on board with that as well. And I guess to me, it could be one of those. If you're looking at, do I play Montgomery or do I pick up a guy like Deion Jackson or do I put AJ Dillon? Like, some of these other ancillary pieces that you may or may not be able to play, having Herbert in there kind of leans the opposite direction. Like, I'm just not going to lean Montgomery at this point just because Herbert's going to be back. Treylon Burks practiced in full on Tuesday. He's missed back-to-back games due to concussion. I can't play. I mean, I love his talent. I can't play him, though, with Malik Willis, as we talked about a little earlier. And then Dallas Goedert, a little help at tight end if you've been holding on to him, activated from IR. But again, a quarterback issue with Gardner Minshew and against this Dallas team. I think that Dallas Goedert's probably talented enough. If you don't have anyone else or you've just been trying to scrap and claw your way at tight end and he's been on your IR, I think you probably go ahead and put him right back in your lineup. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Goddard back in your lineup this week off the IR?
I mean, it's definitely a curious situation, right? I don't know if you have better options. If it was any other position, I would be like, let him sit for a minute, let him, get back into speed, let the Eagles ease him in. Jalen Hurts isn't playing. But I think because it's specifically the tight end, you can get away with Goddard coming in and getting, a catch or two. Maybe he gets a touchdown in this game. Maybe they do up his volume. Those boomer bust situations, that's pretty much what you're going to get regardless if you're putting somebody in, unless their name is Andrews, Kelsey, or maybe Hawkinson. You could put in that grouping at this point. But, I don't think you're really risking anything too much by starting Dallas Goedert just because of the nature of that position.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move in. We're going to kind of set a couple lineups here. We've got a couple playoff teams that we want to walk through, set some lineups, ask some questions. If you're in the chat tonight, you got some start sit questions for this weekend. Throw them in your chat. Throw them in the chat. We'll answer them for you. Maybe you're looking at some of these same things. Deion Jackson versus Dante Foreman. Everybody's got questions right now. Throw them in the chat. We will answer them for you. And then we're going to start with my teams here, Dan. I've got 3 playoff teams I'd like to take a look at. And we'll start here. Trevor Lawrence. I'm worried about Trevor Lawrence. So we're going to talk quarterbacks in full here momentarily, but I'm a little bit worried about Trevor Lawrence. The rest of this lineup, to me, there's not a lot of question marks about who I'm going to start. Michael Pittman, you could potentially find a spot, but I'm rolling out Devontae Adams, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, and Devontae Smith. I don't think I'm starting Michael Pittman over any of those guys. Would you agree with that?
I would pretty much. I mean, the only one I would consider starting him over is maybe T. Higgins because of that Patriots defense. I mean, we saw what happened whenever the Browns played him and they got to pressuring Joe Burrow. I mean, the Patriots have a good opportunity to potentially do that against him. But I like the upside of T. Higgins way more than what I'm getting from Michael Pittman, considering Nick Foles is starting, right? And you have no idea who his chemistry is with. You don't know who he's going to prefer to throw to. Take the safe route and plug T. Higgins in there for sure.
Yeah, and I could have thought about Devontae Smith with Gardner, but again, I mean, Pittman's got the same issues, right? A new quarterback coming in.
Right.
So that's where I'll roll this week. So this lineup, really, there's not a lot of question marks outside of Trevor Lawrence versus Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has been pretty bad since he's been back in terms of turnovers.
Right.
Thoughts on Trevor Lawrence versus Dak Prescott?
I mean, it would definitely tempt me, especially based on what Dak Prescott was able to put up last week against the Jags. Yeah. Now, the Eagles are not the Jags, right? That defense is a lot different.
Absolutely.
And, at this point, obviously Trevor Lawrence is facing a tough defense in the New York Jets as well.
And on Thursday night, short week.
Right. I just think there's a better opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to put up more points over the last, what's it been, 3-4 weeks. He has like an 11-1 TD interception ratio, and they've been 3-1 in that span. So I guess that's the last 4 weeks. So, Trevor Lawrence has been the more consistent, more safe quarterback to plug in. I mean, that's who I'm going with. I think you've probably had him in your lineup just based on what I'm looking at each of the last 3-4 weeks anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Just keep riding the hot hand, man.
That's right. And I've got him in 2 different lineups. Or I've got him on 3 different season-long teams, but you're going to see him on 2 different tonight. This lineup here, another ESPN one. This one's not as straightforward. I've got a couple question marks. I was hoping Lamar would be back. He's not going to be, so I'll definitely be moving him out.
Just had some wishful thinking going
that's
there.
That's right. I thought maybe if I put him in there, it would happen. I do want to talk about Rodgers versus Lawrence here before too long. Maybe when we get to the quarterback section, let's talk a little bit about Rodgers versus Lawrence.
Yeah.
I'll just put Lawrence in there for now. And then I've got this. Gabe Davis sucks, but Chicago plays a zone defense. So I feel a little bit better about Gabe Davis this week because Chicago plays zone and Gabe Davis he's great against the zone. He can't beat man coverage, but he is great against zone coverage. So really, I'm sitting here. I picked up Hodgins. He's got 4 or 5 targets a game the last couple of games.
Yep.
6, 6, and 4. Has been pretty good. And Minnesota's defense is pretty bad against the pass. I just don't have a lot of other options, but I did pick up Deion Jackson just in case I wanted to flex him. So again, I guess that's where I'm at.
This poor roster.
Portland Sutherland, I assume he doesn't got to play this week.
Yeah, I would assume that as well. This poor roster, man. I mean, I'm just looking at the IR. You've got Deebo Samuel and Javonte Williams sitting there. Lamar Jackson's missed time. Cortland Sutton's missed time. Even Kenneth Walker up there was missing some games as well. So I mean, to make it to the playoffs with these guys and kind of the holes that you've had, Tony Pollard obviously I think saved your season here.
Yep.
But man, what a tough. That's savvy moves that you've been putting on to get yourself here, my guy.
He's been trying to ride the zero RB train with this one. Travis Kelce, Javonte Williams, and Deebo Samuel were my 3 keepers.
Right. Yeah.
So for 2 of them to be out, that's been tough.
It has to be tough. The only thing I would really consider is maybe moving Hodgins instead of Gabe Davis and then plugging in Chuba Hubbard there because they're facing the Detroit Lions and that rush defense is pretty bad.
Like that.
Outside of that, I'm not sure anything else I would change. Love the defense, obviously. The Bills against Chicago, they're going to put in some work. We just talked about Trevor Lawrence. We'll get further into that. I do like Aaron Rodgers this week because of his matchup with Miami. I would
grabbed him today.
Popping that out.
I snagged him today. Just especially after doing some more research, actually in preparation for our quarterback talk.
Yeah.
So we'll hash that out here momentarily. Let me get to my very last one, which is pretty standard, pretty set forward. Josh Allen, a quarterback. I've got Henry, Jones, and Tony Pollard. You can play 2 to 3 running backs or, essentially your flex. But on my fantasy league, it looks a little different. Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver. Just traded for Keenan Allen last week before the playoffs. And then Gerald Everett, your boy, at tight end. But I've got Keenan Allen as well. And I've got Juwan Johnson. 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah. No, hey, Juwan, that's my guy right now. I'm feeling pretty good about that one. Just looking at the lineup, I don't think there's anything I'm changing here. Josh Allen, no-brainer there.
Right.
The 3 running backs. You got to start Derrick Henry. You got to start Tony Pollard. He's been phenomenal all season long. And then Aaron Jones, I think maybe gets the better half of the touches with A.J. Dillon coming off that concussion. Maybe LaFleur is a little bit more cautious with him. But the Miami Dolphins defense is bad.
Yeah.
So, they're going to carve them up. And then those 3 receivers, Jamar Chase always going to get his. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be, McCoy, or I guess it's Trace McSorley now. He'll be McSorley's go-to.
Not happy about that, but it's still DeAndre Hopkins.
Right. And it's not like you're going to start Westbrook Akine with Malik Willis.
Right.
Russell Gage is hit or miss. Matt Collins maybe is boomer bust. That's a potential there, but I'm not starting him over studs like DeAndre Hopkins and Keenan Allen. That's for sure.
That's right. Start your studs this week, folks. Start your studs. Well, that's the 3 I have. I'm going to let you pull yours up, and while you do that, let me stop screen. Let's answer this question while you pull yours up. Who wins semifinals? Team 1 is Patrick Mahomes, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Austin Eckler, James Conner, George Kittle, Garrett Wilson. Pat's defense, team 2, Brady, Hill, Metcalf, Dalvin Cook, Jerick McKinnon, Kelsey, Pacheco, Chiefs. Wow. You think that's a Chiefs fan? They
went 0 any other team strategy.
Jerick McKinnon, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, and the Chiefs defense. I think, the one thing that the team 1 has going on here is if the Chiefs Seahawks game, which is looking to be super cold, we were talking about before the show, if that's going to be -5 degrees and they're just going to run the ball and try to stay healthy and get the heck out of Dodge, that's going to help team 1 tremendously. But we're dealing with that all over the place this week. Cold temperatures everywhere. I like
Right.
team 1 in this because team 2 is essentially going to hurt its own ceiling, right? Because Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelce cannot score. I mean, unless it's
Mahomes.
a halfback pass, but they can't score together.
Yeah.
Right. So Mahomes can throw 3 touchdowns, and none of those guys could catch him. Right. Juju gets the catch. Hardman, could be playing this week. Maybe he gets one. Tony is still active. Noah Gray, Justin Watson. Like, there's so many. So I really like team 1 here with the explosion of Davante Adams, and Christian Watson's been really hot recently. James Conner with Trace McSorley playing, of course. Kittle goes off last week. Yeah, I'm going team 1 here.
I mean, the difference for me is definitely at the quarterback position, and not from the angle that you took. I mean, that's a great point, obviously, but Tom Brady has not been good at fantasy football, at least for the last few weeks. He's been safe, right? He doesn't turn the ball over a ton, doesn't throw a ton of picks, but that's a huge difference between what Brady and Mahomes have been able to do respectively in fantasy football. I think the X factor for team 2, if they do pull off with a win here, it's because Mahomes threw, 2-3 touchdowns to Kelce. They didn't, for whatever reason, didn't run the ball a ton. They reverted back to the early season offense, and Metcalf is the primary guy out there in Seattle with Tyler Lockett going down.
And we know how bad the Chiefs defense is.
Our secondary is pretty generous.
Yes.
And then you got Tyreek Hill too. So, those guys really got to pop off, I think, for them to lose this game. Eckler, Christian Watson's been great. Davante Adams has been solid. James Conner, I think, is going to be the focal point of that offense moving forward with, their quarterback woes. I mean, team 1 for sure.
Click, let us know which team was yours. Hopefully it's team 1. You're set up great. If not, honestly, I don't think I'm playing. I'm definitely not playing Pacheco and McKinnon together this week.
Oh, certainly
not in a redraft league like this. Not in a playoff scenario. Take one or the other. And
right.
Which one would you take? I think I'm taking McKinnon.
This isn't a Pollard and Zeke situation or an Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. I think those are the only 2 tandems that you would want to play them both. Team 1.
Team 1.
All right. All right, baby.
You got this.
Well, I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can get these starts going. You guys are seeing that, right?
Yeah. Can you zoom in?
Yeah, let's get that zoomed in. And
I probably should have done that too.
Boom, boom, boom. How's that look? Let me pop it out one more time. So this is my 10-team flex league redraft, round 1 of the playoffs. I ended the season number 1 in points. We've got Josh Allen, Derrick Henry. Miles Sanders is one of my question marks for sure with this lineup. I plugged in CeeDee Lamb and Garrett Wilson. Mark Andrews is actually, believe it or not, a question mark for me. And then Chris Godwin at my flex. And then here's the bench, right? So Fields, ETN, James Robinson, London, a couple of these other guys. The big question for me with Mark Andrews is, do I plug him in or do I roll with TJ Hawkinson? I feel like TJ Hawkinson's been more consistent, but what do you make of this lineup so far?
I want to tell you Mark Andrews, but I think I'm TJ Hawkinson over Mark Andrews this week. With how well this Vikings offense is rolling, the Giants defense it's not great. It's in a dome. We don't get a lot of dome games this week, so I'm trying to take advantage of as many dome games as possible with all this weather across the way. But I want to mention this because I've saw it a lot on Twitter. People asking questions such as, should I play Josh Allen? It's supposed to be super windy, which is true. And we know that wind does affect our quarterbacks, especially in fantasy, quite a bit.
Right.
But Josh Allen can run for 100 yards, 150 yards. He can sling this bad boy through the air. Stop asking that question to me. Right? Just play Josh Allen. So if you're out there and you're thinking, could I play quarterback X over Josh Allen? You're not playing anybody over Josh Allen, unless maybe you got Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen together, right? That's
which would be silly.
Happening. So, yeah, I love Derrick Henry in this spot. Miles Sanders in a good spot, I think, against this Dallas defense, who has really been a lot weaker over the last 6 weeks. since their bye week, they have not been as dominant as they were early in the season. Little worried Garrett Wilson, just because I think Zach Wilson is terrible. But I mean, you can't go away from him at this point in the season. Terry McLaurin on your bench, but against one of the best defenses in the league in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Not really looking forward to that. I think maybe you have an opportunity to think about a Travis Etienne over Garrett Wilson in that same Thursday night game. And that's hard, though. I mean, really, at that point in time, I'm just going off of it's Thursday night. They're going to, potentially utilize the run a little bit more heavy, and it's Zach Wilson, and I just don't trust Zach Wilson. But that's the only thing I would even debate, and I'm not even sold on it.
Right. And, obviously Etienne had a pretty decent game minus a fumble lost, but he's had so many of those issues lately. So, the turnovers and things of that nature that really definitely makes me proceed with caution with him. So, I think as of right now, the way it looks, I like this lineup. I don't mind Garrett Wilson. I think there's an opportunity for him to, still put up some numbers. I mean, what did he do last week? 4 catches for 94 yards or 98 yards?
He get the ball in his hand. He's great.
Yeah, he's still got some work in. Zach Wilson is atrocious, obviously. But the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is pretty forgiving when it comes to the passing game. So I think I'm gonna leave him in there at least for now.
Lock it in.
I have it until tomorrow at 7:15 to figure it out.
That's right.
So,
got plenty of time to sit on it.
Absolutely. So I'll get to this next team. So here's who I've got in this one. Finished as a wild card team. Number 1 in points in this one, but I also had the most points scored against me. I'm loving this lineup. DK, Waddle, Jefferson, Ramondre had an amazing game last week against the Raiders, of course, but they're facing Cincinnati. There's no Sam Hubbard on their defensive line right now, so that's a nice vote of confidence. Here's my bench.
T. Higgins on the bench. You got a good squad when you got T. Higgins on the bench.
And Hawkinson. I'm starting Kelsey, obviously, but those are 2 guys that I've been able to lean on whenever, for Kelsey, it's just been a bye, luckily. But those are guys I've been able to lean on. But yeah, I feel pretty confident about this lineup. And I actually happen to be facing a guy who is starting Jalen Hurts. So I'll show you the squad I'm going up against just for bonus points here, since we're not doing too much analysis.
Oh, yeah. Has he got any other quarterbacks?
He has none yet. Waivers haven't processed.
Okay. So he's going to have to get to work.
Thursday. Yeah, so he's got a solid team all around. I mean, these 2, not super worried. They could pop off, though. Kamara's due for one.
Yeah, he is.
Hopkins could be hindered. A.J. Brown could be hindered with that quarterback situation. Keenan Allen, I think, is going to put up good points. None of these other guys on the bench, I do not foresee him swapping them in. So I feel really good about this matchup.
I mean, chalk this one up. You're going to the ship, man.
Hey, easy. I'm knocking on wood now.
Chalk it up.
I feel really good about this one, though.
Yeah, that's a solid lineup.
So this last one, I'll just show you one more. This one's really tough. I like the players that I have in right now. Obviously, Miles Sanders was a question for me last time. I was big on him coming into the season. So, we'll see what happens. I ended up picking up Darren Waller and off of waivers earlier this year, so I had to plug him in. This is a 12-man league. And just moving on down, that's the bench for me. Ouch.
There goes
there.
Jonathan Taylor. I have one question for you here. It feels like you got a lot of DK Metcalf this week. How are you going to handle that inside Arrowhead Stadium as a Chiefs fan?
Hey, as long as the Chiefs are taking care of what they need to take care of, DK Metcalf can do whatever.
That's right. Look, 37-30, Metcalf with 3 touchdowns, but Mahomes to Kelsey for 3 touchdowns. You're racking in all the championships and your favorite team wins. So
I'm looking for a situation like last year with Jamar Chase, except the Chiefs come out with the win and we win comfortably. You know what I mean? Like that's the ideal situation. My big question with this roster is whether or not I should move Zeke over one of these two guys.
J.K. Dobbins, 2 straight weeks, 120 plus rushing yards. I'm playing him against a terrible Atlanta team. No Lamar Jackson. They're going to just keep relying on J.K. Dobbins. I'm definitely playing him over Zeke. It's the Miles Sanders one for me. That's the one that, I might look at a little bit more. Mm-hmm. They're utilizing Zeke and Pollard so well in this, thunder lightning type of situation. Zeke's the finisher, right?
Touchdown,
look at these touchdowns. Like he's the finisher. He's not going to have 25 carries, but when they get inside the 20-yard line, he's going to get the ball. I like Zeke a lot.
Pretty consistent.
The Eagles' defense has been better since Jordan Davis came back. I think you referenced that last week.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think Dallas has a lot more motivation in this game. It would have been awesome to see Jalen Hurts in this game. I would have loved it. It would have also been awesome had Dallas not lost. And so this division was a lot tighter.
Right.
But that doesn't happen. Dallas has a lot more motivation in this game. I like Zeke over Miles Sanders.
I mean, I named the team after him.
Okay. There you go. You have to go with him.
So, I mean, just kind of looking at the matchup here, I am facing a tough team.
Oh, yeah, you got the Kelsey. Antonio Gibson's in a really tough spot.
Yeah.
So you don't mind that. Who else you got there?
He's not really moving anyone off that bench.
No, not at all. Not at all. Maybe Algier. I might play Algier over Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, with Huntley going down, I think that, that might be something I consider. Hopefully Jonathan's not listening tonight.
If you are, don't do that.
Yeah, do something else.
Yeah, but Michael Pittman, we just talked about him kind of in a rough spot. I mean, Nick Foles is a competent quarterback. We've seen him many times before, so maybe he still gets his. But Devontae Smith and Michael Pittman both having quarterback questions this week could potentially help you a little bit as you're not dealing with some of those kind of things. But yeah, Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, who'd have thunk it?
Hey, at least I've got Mahomes here. Any touchdowns that go to Kelsey, I break a little bit off of that.
That's right.
So yeah, that's what I'm looking like for the playoffs. I have one other dynasty team in the playoffs, but that one's pretty stacked up. I feel really good about that one.
Yeah. This is shots fired here. How do my dynasty league of gurus? It's one of my dynasty leagues. Dallas kicked my ass last week, so he has to come in here and chirp a little bit. It's actually one of our longest leagues we've had since 2014, and it was a league that I thought about, starting to tank in, and then I started winning. I thought I had a chance and get to the playoffs, and there was no chance. So, congrats to you, Dallas. If you're in the chat tonight, drop in any start-sit questions you might have. We ran through our teams that we've got going into the playoffs. Drop a like on it. Subscribe to the Stadium Rant YouTube channel. We've got shows every night starting next Monday. Nightly shows. We've got betting shows. We've got NFL shows, NBA shows. I mean, things are rocking and rolling on this YouTube channel. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us, if you will. Hit the like button. And then, of course, let us know if you've got start-sit questions. Even if you already think you know the answer, throw them in the chat. We'll give you our ideas from it.
I think every Sunday, I mean, at least the last 5-6 weeks in a row, I've bounced something off of you, and you've done it vice versa. So, I mean, just getting that second opinion, even if it's just reassurance about your feeling, is always a nice vote of confidence going into Sundays.
100%. Want to make sure this is the right way to go.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we can get into starts and streams, but you want to hear a little something about NFL Plus first?
Yeah, let's hit it. Well, the NFL season is here, and so is NFL Plus. NFL Plus allows you all your local games, all the primetime games, and even coaches film with select subscriptions starting at just $4.99 per month. Click on the link in the episode description to browse options and enjoy the NFL on the go. Take the NFL anywhere you are this season and join NFL Plus today. Little word from NFL Plus. Let's get into starts and streams. Dan, this is like a hot and cold thing for us, man. We killed it 2 weeks ago.
I think we're just good on odd weeks.
And then last week, it just didn't go well for us, but we're ready to rock now, right? We're ready to get back into it for the semifinal week. I'm going to let you kind of review our starts, and I'll hit our streams.
Yeah, absolutely. So, last week we both had one bright spot each, I guess. I told you guys to start Isaiah Pacheco. That fumble against Houston pretty much stifled his day. Ends up with 8.7 fantasy points, running back 38. I went with Garrett Wilson. If he scored, I think you're feeling a little bit better about this one, but that didn't end up being the case. Only 4 catches, 9 targets, so the volume was there, but Zach Wilson is equivalent to a walking trash can. So 13.8 fantasy points there, wide receiver 28, barely cracked the top 30. But Dawson Knox, baby, tight end number 3. He catches 6 passes for 98 yards and a touchdown.
Every time he caught the ball, I just kept thinking about it. I'm like, man, Dan nailed this one.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really on it, but man, you nailed it.
I started him that week in that league I just showed you, the ESPN one, and I put him in there over Darren Waller, who also had a good week. I wasn't sure of him coming off of that IR against the Patriots, no less. So rolled with Knox, and it paid off.
Took your own advice.
Yeah, you gotta, if you're gonna say it, I think you gotta really commit to it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
With you got a pretty solid pick on wide receiver with Michael Pittman. 10 catches on 14 targets. I mean, the dude was getting all kinds of looks, including 2 carries for 30 yards, which you don't always see unless you're fielding Deebo Samuel or McCole Hardman. So finishes with 19 fantasy points, top 15 wide receiver. That's exactly what you want from a starter for sure. Brian Robinson, on the other hand, 11.7. Not bad if you're flexing him, right?
I mean, he did exactly what we expected, 89 yards. And I came on, I said he's had 3 of the last 4 games, he's gone over 80 yards. Well, he does it again, but he can't find pay dirt. He can't find the end zone.
I don't know what they're doing over there with the end zone, but for whatever reason, I mean, they're not employing that strategy they had when they played the Eagles and beat them earlier this season.
They scored about 3 times on that one drive, and every time they got a penalty. So that had something to do with it.
Oh, man, that's a whole other conversation for another day, I think. And then tight end, you had Greg Dulcich, which, 1 catch for 11 yards, just 2 targets. The volume wasn't even there. So it's not like, he had the backup quarterback throwing to him. It was just bad. I don't know what happened with this game. I mean, to be honest with you, I wasn't really watching Broncos Cardinals. It was maybe shown in 3 cities across the U.S. So not a huge game for two eliminated teams, but you would have expected more against a weak Cardinals team.
Yeah. Well, the Cardinals are the worst against tight ends of all the teams in the NFL. But Greg Dulcich, man, he just hasn't really. He's had 1 or 2 good games, but I just keep wishing him into being great. It's just not happened for him yet. The streams, the streams didn't get much better, at least on my end. You did nail the tight end once again. You went Mac Jones. He ends up quarterback 28. I was in on Mac Jones this week, and
what a stinker! Wow,
he was bad. 13 of 31, 112 yards. It wasn't good. The Packers so you nailed the Packers defense and Jawan Johnson, your boy, 4 for 67 with 2 tutties, ends up tight end 2. So you nailed the tight end 2 and the tight end 3 on the week. Packers defense has 5 sacks and interception. I'm playing against the Packers defense in the game. I had Christian Watson. So that was kind of back and forth, but they end up as the second best defense on the week. And then for my streams, I went Mike White. Actually, Zach Wilson doesn't end up bad. I think he ends up quarterback 15 where I think Mike White was really set up for a good spot last week, but he ends up not actually playing. That injury just holds him out, and it's going to hold him out again this week. Cade Otton, he was getting all the routes. He's running all the routes, getting all the snaps, but just one target last week doesn't do anything for you. And then the Panthers defense was bad. So
I think with the Buccaneers, they turned the ball over 4 straight drives and then turned the ball over on downs the one drive before that. So they went straight panic mode and they started just throwing it to the studs, right?
Yep,
the guys they can trust in those tight situations. So the game script just didn't really play out for Cade Otton. I think he had a lot of opportunity there. And Mike White, man, he would have balled out against the Detroit Lions. I think the Jets maybe win that game if he's starting.
Yeah, Mike White is way better than Zach Wilson. It's such a good spot. For Zach Wilson to end up in a top 15 quarterback, like I think Mike White ends up top 12 quite easily in that same situation.
Yeah.
And let's talk about quarterbacks this week, because this is the question for a lot. Not everybody's rolling out Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen this week, like one of your matchups, right? There are some question marks. I had a couple question marks with Trevor Lawrence and Dak and Aaron Rodgers. So a lot of different options out there. I want to start with Gardner Minshew. How are you feeling with this? If Jalen Hurts does miss, can you go to Mustache Mania?
As a fellow mustachioed person, I want to support Gardner Minshew, but I just don't trust him coming in. Obviously, he has all the talent in the world around him, a phenomenal offensive line, a great group of running backs, right? Miles Sanders, Gainwell, Boston Scott, those guys can really put it down on the ground. And then you're throwing the ball to a CJ or a Calvin Johnson clone in AJ Brown. And you've got Devontae Smith, one of the faster players in the NFL. He has no shortage of weapons coming into this offense, especially with the return of Dallas Goedert. Also, the big thing for me is that he's coming off the bench. We haven't seen him in action in over a year. Right. He hasn't been in an actual game situation outside of maybe some preseason starts and whatnot. And he's facing one of the toughest top 5 defense in the NFL in the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think he's going to be taking a lot of sacks because of how solid that offensive line is, but he's going to feel the pressure. And I don't feel confident in him making those throws under pressure.
Yeah, I think that you have to be desperate if you're going to play him. Look, if I had to play him, I'd be like, yeah, we can do this, right? But I think you really have to be desperate if you're going to play him this week. I mean, I've got written down here like Minshew or Dak. I'm playing Dak probably in that sense, right?
Oh, 100%.
I would play Kirk Cousins over Gardner Minshew. I'd play Trevor Lawrence over Gardner Minshew. I'm trying to just think of others. I'd probably play Gardner over Tom Brady, Daniel Jones, some of these other guys that are like, they could have gotten you to where you're at potentially if you're just stacked everywhere else.
Right.
And you're kind of rolling with these like top 15, top 17 type quarterbacks. Where's the line for you when you're looking at some of these guys, Tyler Huntley, who's, been playing the last couple of weeks. I'm probably playing Gardner over him.
Yeah.
I'm probably playing Gardner over Zach Wilson. Like if you're a super flex league, right? And you're trying to figure out some of these quarterbacks.
Sure.
I'm just trying to find a line here that, like, who would you start Gardner over?
I mean, just kind of, I'll go down the line and just kind of see here. I probably start him over Zach Wilson, to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of him. Maybe start him over Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton's a pretty close comparison there. They are playing Cleveland. The defense is not that great. Over Malik Willis and Davis Mills, I think for sure. Kirk Cousins, I'm starting him over Gardner. But Daniel Jones, I do like Gardner Minshew over him. I like Minshew over Mac Jones this week going against the Cincinnati Bengals. I like Jared Goff over him. Baker, with the Rams going against the Broncos. I'm not starting him at all. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks here. Heineke, I'm not starting over him with him facing the Niners. Desmond Ridder and Tyler Huntley. I mean, you can both throw those guys underneath him. Tom Brady is the one that you mentioned that I don't agree with because he's facing the Arizona Cardinals. I think Tom Brady has a really good opportunity to put up some points and probably has a better chance to do it than what Gardner does. But like, Nick Foles, no way. Kenny Pickett, probably not. Derek Carr, maybe. I'd say it's right between the Derek Carr and he's maybe between Derek Carr just ahead of him, and then right below him's like Heineke, Andy Dalton in that range.
What about Deshaun Watson?
I like Watson over him.
I think I was going to go. I'm going Gardner in that situation. If that's a choice for me, I would take Minshew and all the weapons.
Well, the weapons is the big advantage there, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that Cleveland is a more run-centric offense anyway. The Saints are a tough defense too, so I think it's pretty close. I mean, you're kind of splitting hair. I'm going towards Deshaun Watson just because I know what kind of football he can bring to the table, and I think he's kicking rust off. So I just can imagine he gets better and better. So I would be banking on that if I start him over Minshew.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're kind of in that, Minshew, putting him in with, I would say, like Watson, Derek Carr, Jared Goff, kind of that top 15 to 18 range. But he's not really sniffing our top 12.
No way.
Well, another quarterback I want to talk about is Trevor Lawrence. As we saw in my lineups, I've got him everywhere this year, and a big reason why I'm in the semifinals. Dude continues to smash. He's at least 26 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. And those games were against the Ravens, the Titans, and Dallas. Like, these are good defenses, and he's putting up 26 fantasy points. It's Thursday night, and it's against the Jets. Can we trust Trevor Lawrence? He's got us this far. Can we trust him on Thursday night?
I'm trusting him. I think I already said earlier, you got to ride that hot hand. You got to leave him in. He's faced other tough defenses, so this is not anything he's foreign to, right? The Titans, the Ravens, all of those guys, the Cowboys who he just faced, all of those guys, all of those teams rather are very tough on quarterbacks, and they generate pressure. They force turnovers. They're very opportunistic in that sense. The Titans beat the hell out of anybody they play from the quarterback position. So, and another little spot here to mention is Quinnen Williams likely isn't going to play that defensive tackle for the New York Jets on the short week. So that's a lot of pressure off the middle of that offensive line that he's not going to have to face or go up against. So I feel really good about Trevor Lawrence this week. I think there's a good chance that they secure a win in this game as well and make it really tough on that Titans team. So I'm rocking with Trevor if I got him.
All right. But you said it earlier, you like Aaron Rodgers against the Dolphins, and I've got that set up. I pick up Aaron Rodgers. I got Trevor Lawrence. Is Aaron Rodgers viable against the Miami Dolphins this week?
He's certainly viable. I mean, there's no bones about it. The Dolphins defense is bottom 5 in a lot of different metrics, and one of those is against fantasy quarterbacks, right? So
31st.
Yeah, so they're bottom of the barrel when it comes to that. We saw Josh Allen torch them. Now, Aaron Rodgers is not quite the quarterback he used to be. They're definitely leaning more on the run game. But I can definitely see this turning into one of those stat lines that we saw last year from Aaron Rodgers, right? Barely cracks 200 yards, but he throws 3 touchdowns and has a clean game with no turnovers. So, I mean, if you're looking for a guy to put up 20 plus points, I think Aaron Rodgers gets that done this week. And do I like him more than Trevor Lawrence? It's tough. I usually question. If I'm at a toss-up situation, which I think we are here, I go with the matchup, and the matchup tells me Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. Matchup, and honestly, that Thursday night it kind of worries me a little bit. Just we see some of these short week games just really drag on and not a lot of scoring. But yeah, I like this game is in Miami So it's one of the few warm games, warmer
Right.
at least not in the frozen tundra. 24 points per game is what the Miami defense is giving up to fantasy quarterbacks 2 straight top 8 weeks against quarterbacks. So
Wow.
yeah, I also believe in Aaron Rodgers this week, and I think that's going to be a tough decision to make. But right now, I'm leaning towards Aaron Rodgers against over Trevor Lawrence. Unfortunately, I only have that in like one spot, but I'll be playing plenty of Trevor Lawrence still and other lineups. So if he ends up blowing up tomorrow, I'll be happy either way.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk about Malik Willis here.
Yep.
Obviously, Tannehill goes down. They're facing one of the worst defenses in the NFL in the Houston Texans. Mahomes had a field day against them last week with, a couple scores over 300 yards, just doing what he does, right? And a lot of quarterbacks have had a lot of success against this guy. But, with the way the Titans offense rolls, especially when Tannehill's not in the lineup, I mean, can you trust Malik Willis to put up any points? I think, most of what you'd be banking on is him getting involved in the run game.
Yeah, he's going to have to run the ball quite a bit, I think, to be fantasy relevant this week. To me, it's super flex only. Like if it's one quarterback, there's other guys out there that I'm absolutely taking over Malik Willis. Again, he threw the ball one time in the second half against the Houston Texans. The first time around they played each other, and it was like a throwaway, right? It wasn't even targeting anybody. He just threw the ball away. I think this team is just going to turn around, hand it to Derrick Henry. It is in December. It is the Houston Texans. And Derrick Henry smashes both of those scenarios. And now you got Malik Willis. So I'm not riding Malik Willis. I don't think he's playable. I would rather play Brock Purdy, honestly, because at least Brock Purdy can dump it off to Christian McCaffrey and get points that way, or find Ayuk or whatnot. So I would rather play a guy like Brock Purdy who's not rostered anywhere, just as Malik Willis isn't rostered anywhere, even in super flex leagues. I think you mentioned Andy Darnold and Andy Dalton earlier. I would definitely take him over a guy like Malik. Malik Willis has great dynasty value, and I could see the Titans losing a couple down the stretch here and not making the playoffs and completely moving on from Ryan Tannehill and making this Malik Willis's team. But right now, he's not fantasy relevant to me.
Right. Well, that's a guy that I actually forgot about. You said him on accident, Darnold. Sam Darnold. He's facing the Lions, that defense that's been so friendly to quarterbacks. Are you playing Sam Darnold over Gardner Minshew?
No, I'm not playing him over Minshew. No, that's a good question though. I'm not playing him over Minshew. I'd probably put him a couple slots. I put Darnold, I don't know, probably more in like the top 20 range, not necessarily top 15, 18. Right. Sam Darnold, absolutely in a good spot. This Carolina offense just doesn't have enough volume. Mm-hmm. And Minshew, again, I mean, he can just throw it up to A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown can break a tackle and take it to the house. So I'm going to take the talented offense around Gardner Minshew over the play against the Detroit Lions defense.
Right. No, I agree with that, especially with the uncertainty surrounding DJ Moore too for this weekend. Yep. Let's move it into the running back starts. I'll go with mine first. Raheem Mostert. I mean, the guy balled out against the Buffalo Bills. I think he averaged like 8 yards a carry, ends up putting up one of the better stat lines in the NFL for running backs from a fantasy perspective, at least. And now this week, the Miami Dolphins get to take on the Green Bay Packers, who have been very generous to opposing running backs. Jeff Wilson obviously didn't play against Buffalo last week. He's been a limited participant this week, but I imagine Raheem will still get the bulk of the carries just as they kind of ease Jeff Wilson in. And there's going to be plenty to go around against this Green Bay Packers defense. So I'm really liking the Raheem Mostert start this week for sure.
Is it 2020 all over again with Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson? Who are you going to play each week? Man, this is the Miami Dolphins.
Or Miami?
This is the Dolphins. I don't know how the Dolphins lost that game last week. I was I was heartbroken. I really wanted to see the Bills lose for obvious reasons with the Chiefs. But yeah, Mostert's really good when he's healthy. And right now he's healthy. So line him up, let him roll against a bad Packers defense. I'm going Jerick McKinnon. Look, we've seen it 3 games in a row now with Jerick McKinnon. He continues to find the end zone, 5 touchdowns over the last 3 games, but his usage has also increased. If we go all the way back to the bye week in week 9, the backfield really started to turn towards Pacheco, and he was getting all the work. And then around week 12, it kind of started to flip back in the other range. McKinnon's getting a lot more snaps. Pacheco's still handling some work, but in week 13, McKinnon narrowed the opportunities from 16 to 10 in favor of Pacheco still, but you started to see that gap narrow in a hurry. Since week 13, McKinnon's snap share has increased all the way out to last week, a 60-35 split. So McKinnon is on the field way more often than Isaiah Pacheco is right now. Some of that last week, obviously Pacheco's fumble doesn't help him at all. And look, I wasn't high on McKinnon last week. I came on the show. I was like, no, don't play him as much because he's a veteran. Andy Reid's gonna rest him a little bit because I thought they were just gonna destroy the Texans. That doesn't happen. I don't think they come out and just destroy Seattle where they could rest McKinnon. I think they start to lean on this veteran a lot more down the stretch, and he's shown out. I mean, what was it, like 15-yard, 20-yard, touchdown run to end the game to walk it off. Like,
right.
He's there. He's very efficient with his touches right now, and they're throwing the ball to him a lot more. So give me some Jerick McKinnon. He's playable everywhere, PPR, non-PPR, because of the touchdowns right now.
Absolutely. I like that pick quite a bit. I think the Chiefs have a nice little matchup. I mean, it's going to be a cold weather game too, right? So there's a chance that they lean on that run game a little bit more. The offense has been better whenever we lean on that run game, just speaking from a Chiefs perspective. So, I think Andy Reid and Bieniemy and those guys are starting to figure that out and starting to trust those guys a little bit more and seeing McKinnon get involved. We kind of saw it this way last year too, right? As the season progressed, McKinnon got more and more involved and ended up becoming that primary guy for the playoffs. So, maybe they're gearing him up for that kind of workload, and, why not benefit from that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm expecting too. I think Pacheco will still come in and hammer away on first and second down, but I think we're going to start to see week after week a 60-40 type split with McKinnon getting the bulk of the opportunities in Kansas City.
Absolutely. Looking at wide receivers, I'm sticking with this Kansas City-Seattle game, and I'm rocking with the other side this time. DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett's injured. He broke his finger, ends up having surgery. He's going to miss a couple weeks. That makes DK like the only guy to catch passes outside of like Will Dissly or maybe Kenneth Walker from the backfield. I guess you got Noah Fant in there too, that can receive some of that workload. But DK is going to be the guy. He was the primary, deep threat kind of guy with Geno Smith anyway. Tyler Lockett obviously was catching a lot of that short yardage stuff over the middle, kind of that Wes Welker, Julian Edelman kind of role. But now that you don't have that, you got to really stick with the other guy that's reliable and and DK Metcalf's still a top 15 fantasy football wide receiver up to this point. So he's my absolute 100% start of the week for sure.
Yeah, the Chiefs are bad against number one wide receivers. We can go nearly every week of the season and find a top 15 wide receiver that the Chiefs defense has given up. I'm going Mike Evans. He's been very disappointing this year, honestly. He sits outside or inside the top 24. I think he's at like wide receiver 23, 22 right now in PPR, but it's so ho-hum this season.
Right.
It's been as a manager with Mike Evans, it's really just been frustrating, but it's not for the lack of targets. Since going back to the week 11 bye, he's had 2 catches on 9 targets against Cleveland, 4 catches on 4 targets against New Orleans, 4 catches on 9 targets against San Fran, 5 catches on 10 targets last week in Cincinnati. At least 9 targets in 3 of the last 4 games. So the volume is absolutely there. So one of the reasons, like, we want to go right back to him. And one of the reasons we've really loved Mike Evans in the past is all that touchdowns, right? He's always been the touchdown guy. Chris Godwin, the PPR guy. Mike Evans is the guy they throw the fade to in the end zone, brings it down. But he hasn't done that this year. 3 touchdowns on the year, and he hasn't had a touchdown since week 4. I think he's due for some positive touchdown regression. And what better time? It's a primetime game. The Bucs are in a playoff race, and it's against the Cardinals, like ho-hum Cardinals, right? So I'm riding Mike Evans this week, and I'm looking for a little bit of a breakout against this Cardinals secondary, and maybe he gets 1 or 2 of those fades.
No, I like that pick for sure. I think there's a really good opportunity for him and Tom Brady to connect many times in this game. Obviously, Tom loves throwing him the ball.
Absolutely.
He's on pace for his 9th straight 1,000-yard reception or 1,000-yard receiving season, which is crazy to think about that Mike Evans has been doing it for that long, but that he's also been just keeping it at that level. But they're due at this point. I think you're kind of hitting it right on the head with that one because good chance Mike Evans puts up some solid points against that secondary in Arizona.
We got some tight ends and defenses still we want to talk through here. Let's get a quick word from Trophy Smack. And if you're here with us, I know you're sitting on a couple questions. I know you're thinking about it. Just throw it in the chat. Let us answer it for you. We'll give you our advice. But let's listen to a word from Trophy Smack.
What's one of the best things about fantasy football? It's the tradition that surrounds it. And nothing sets off a fantasy football league like a piece of hardware with your name on it. Level up your fantasy smack talk with awesome trophies, rings, belts, and more. Check out their options by clicking on our affiliate link in the podcast description.
All right, Dan, let's jump in to tight ends.
It's time. It's time to crack the code for the toughest position in fantasy football here. So looking at the starts, we'll go with starts, and then we'll go with some streaming options, maybe some guys that are going to be available on those waivers. I'm rocking with Dawson Knox again, baby. I'm loving what I'm seeing from him. I do like him in my lineup this week against the Chicago Bears. It's going to be cold. That's for sure. I think the Bills are not really that run type of team. They tend to, nickel and dime you with those short yardage passes until you cheat up a little bit, and then they'll beat you over the top. And I'm expecting Dawson Knox to get a lot of those opportunities and get some red zone opportunities as they, to quote Hank Stram, matriculate the ball down the field. So I'm rocking with Dawson Knox as my tight end start of the week. And I think a lot of that's because you took one of the guys that I was considering for it for sure.
Yeah, I got in here early this week. And, the Bills they're probably not going to be throwing as many bombs as usually, right? Like
right.
The Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie down the field. So just nickel and diming right there with Dawson Knox. It's always weird. I said this on my DFS show last week when I was live during the Bills-Dolphins game. There'll be weeks that Josh Allen doesn't look at Dawson Knox one time. And then there's other weeks that he throws the ball 8 times to him. So hopefully
so frustrating.
This will be with the windier game. This will be a game that he really focuses on guys like Dawson Knox. I'm going Darren Waller. He's back off the IR. Welcome back, right? 3 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown last week. First game back off the IR. That's good enough for me. I sometimes I want to see it. I've seen it. Put him in your lineup.
Sold on it.
Hey, before we get to streams, let's answer this question here real quick. Who do you start? Isaiah Pacheco against the Seahawks or Josh Jacobs against the Pittsburgh Steelers? Dan, for me, it's easy. I can't even say it. It's Josh Jacobs. I just hate Josh Jacobs. I don't like him at all. But for fantasy, I don't know why. I can't ever click the button for Josh Jacobs. But in this situation, it's Josh Jacobs. He's everything to the Las Vegas Raiders and that offense. Whereas Pacheco, as we just talked about, is sharing time with McKinnon. What says you?
No, I think this is definitely an easier decision. Maybe not so easy if you're a Chiefs fan, so I could see the conflict there if that's the case. But Josh Jacobs, I mean, Pittsburgh Steelers, don't get me wrong, they have a solid defense, but they're not as good against the run as you would expect them to be, right? Regardless of TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and that solid linebacking crew with Miles Jack and company. They really just have not defended the run as good as what you'd expect. They're not even top 15 from what I last saw. So, Josh Jacobs has been the primary recipient of any kind of yard or touch in that offense. Maybe you could argue Devontae Adams, but Josh Jacobs, really has been carrying them through a lot of these games. So, dude, ride the hot hand.
Yeah, I definitely am not a Josh Jacobs guy, but yeah, you got to throw him in. If you drafted him, you're playing Josh Jacobs. I just wouldn't draft him.
You wouldn't even put yourself in a position to have to choose between the two.
I don't have to make that choice.
Well, looking at streamers for tight end, I'm rocking with David Njoku this week. I think he has a really good opportunity to put up some points against this Saints defense. Saints not as good against fantasy tight ends as what they're doing against some of these other positions. Njoku is kind of getting worked back in with Deshaun Watson coming in, and if I'm just looking at a streaming option, maybe someone that I can pick up real quick and plug in, he seems like one of the better choices for me. I almost just ran it back with my guys from last week.
That's right.
And threw Jawan Johnson in there, but I'm taking the other side in that Cleveland Saints game and going with Njoku.
Njoku very quietly, and I think a lot of it's because of injury this year. And the tight end position has been pretty bad, but very quietly sitting, top 7 tight end right now. And there's not a lot of hype around him, but when he is healthy and he's out there, he seems to get it done.
Right.
Seems to get it done each and every week. I'm going with Noah Fant right back into that Chiefs Seattle game. And a lot of this has to do without, because there is no Tyler Lockett. Another guy quietly increasing some consistency week in and week out, finished with 14 PPR points in 3 of his last 6 games. So he's got a little bit of that ceiling for you at the tight end position. And again, no Tyler Lockett here. I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to be chasing the Chiefs and having to rely on ancillary pieces like Noah Fant this week.
Right. No, I like that as an opportunity for him to get a little bit of that pie that Lockett's leaving behind, having to nurse that finger. DK Metcalf can't take it all, right? It's got to go somewhere else. And I think
Jamar Chase took it all last year.
That's a little different. If Geno Smith and DK Metcalf went to college together, I'd sing a different tune maybe.
That's right.
What
about defense?
Yeah, let's get into it because defense is I feel like it's an underappreciated thing in fantasy football. I love having that component to it because it makes both phases of the game enjoyable. For me, I was looking at some options out there, and one of my favorite matchups this week is the Broncos defense. We all know that they're tough. They can put it down. They can put some pressure on them. I like their matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. I think there's a really good opportunity for them to force Baker Mayfield into some mistakes. That Rams offensive line is not good at all. So I see a lot of pressure happening there, and it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the line or the total for that game right now is set at 36.5 points. So they're not expecting any kind of offensive fireworks here. So the Broncos, I think they're in a really good situation to be in a top 10, maybe even a top 5 defense for you this week.
Yeah, a lot of low totals this week. A lot of low totals.
It's the weather, man.
It is the weather. And, a lot of these teams might not throw near as much this week, those kind of things. But, you're still going to get after it. I'm looking at defensive lines, right? The Broncos have a really solid defensive line. Different ways to create turnovers, those kind of things. I'm going with the Titans against the Houston Texans. The Titans have 2 things to rely on this week: the run game and the defense. That's where they got to go. That's who's going to step up. And I think, Houston, I'm going to talk a little bit more about them here in a minute with another defense, but it's not as good as it looks. I don't think it's as good as it looks, right? The points they're putting up right now. So I like the Titans defense this week against this Texans offense that's running out two different quarterbacks every other play.
Right.
Davis Mills is running routes. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, I totally get it. The 2 QB with those two guys is a head scratcher for sure. Like, I mean, Taysom Hill, maybe it makes sense a little bit, but Davis Mills and Driscoll is just it was honestly hilarious watching that happen. And it was honestly embarrassing watching it work at times against our defense.
Yeah.
But, no, I love that pick. The Titans, they typically have the Texans number, like regardless of who's quarterbacking that team. So I'm a big fan of that play. I actually advised someone else to make that start and pick them up off the waivers, and I'm grabbing them in one of my leagues as well.
That's right. Well, Dan, it is semifinal weekend, but one thing that I like to do, I'm already looking at next week. If I win or lose this week, you might be in a league that pays out third place. Most of my leagues, you pretty much get, if you are paying for the league, you might get your money back if you win third place, right? Or you're going to the championship game. So I like to look at next week already, quarterbacks or defenses. But right now I want to talk defenses. What's a defense that you would say, go pick them up right now, put them on the end of your bid so you can start them next week?
No one's playing to play in the third place consolation game, right? You're playing to win the damn thing. You're playing to go to the championship round, and why not prepare yourself for it 100%? Just looking at defenses, I think we set a criteria here, right? Like, who's going to be available? We're not putting defenses like the Buccaneers or the Buffalo Bills in here, or the Patriots.
49ers have a stud, like a great matchup next week. I've got them in a league, but you can't go pick them up right now because everybody has them.
Everyone has them. So, I mean, you got to look at some of these teams that aren't getting a lot of love on rosters. And for me, it's the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I don't know if anyone still has them after what they did to the Broncos, right? But they play them again for championship weekend, and they're going to play them in Arrowhead where it's going to be loud and rocking. And
Brett Rippon playing.
They sacked Russell Wilson, who's the more mobile of Ripien and Wright. He's the more mobile of the two, and they still got 6 sacks on him. So, I mean, I'm rocking with Kansas City. I'm scooping them up. So I roll into that championship round with some confidence in that defensive position, especially if I've been streaming teams all year long.
Yeah, the Broncos suck. So why not play the defense that's going to play against them, right? And I said I was going to talk about the Houston Texans again, and I'm going with the Jaguars. Go pick them up. Nobody's playing them. I think they're like 20% rostered on ESPN right now. First off, it's the Texans, right? There's not really a better matchup in the NFL for an opposing defense than against the Houston Texans, and the Chiefs gave up 24 points against the Texans. However, like 17 of those points came off of turnovers. The Chiefs continue to give them opportunities deep in their own territory on occasions. So I'm not really chalking that up to this great Texans offense or really even a really bad Chiefs defense, or not nearly as bad as it might have looked, because they're put in some bad spots there. So I like the Jaguars, but I also want to mention the Jags because Mike Caldwell, the defensive coordinator there, he has to be happy with what he's seen over the past 2 weeks. 7 total sacks and 6 takeaways, including the walk-off pick 6 against the Cowboys last week. So this Jaguars defense is really starting to come into its own. And the Jags offense, we've seen it for like 6-8 weeks now. They've really started to hit. This defense is firing on all cylinders right now. I've already picked them up in multiple leagues in anticipation of playing them next week. I like the Jags defense. I didn't want to go with them this week, although on Thursday night against Zach Wilson, if you need them this week too, I think they're viable. But I really like them next week.
Kind of enticing, man.
Yeah.
Kind of enticing.
They're taking the ball away, and that's what you want to see from a defense.
Absolutely. So before we close out the show, I did have another question for you. So to answer. My cousin asked me earlier today, and so I figured I'd run it by you as well. He's got a flex spot. He has multiple flex spots, but this is the last one he's trying to fill, and he's torn between a few players. So I'm going to run them by you. Donovan Peoples-Jones, so DPJ, Marquez, Valdez-Scantling, Hollywood Brown, and Drake London. He's trying to choose one of those 4 players to plug into his starting lineup at his last flex spot for an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl and win a championship.
Man, 4 options. That's something else. That's a little bit difficult, but one guy stood out amongst all of them, and that was Drake London. Drake London, 11 targets last week, 7 catches, 70 yards. Valdez-Scantling, he's got the ceiling games, right? He can pop off, but there's so many weapons. Hardman might be back this week. Too many weapons there in Kansas City. You can't trust that there. Donovan Peoples-Jones has had a couple of good games here and there. Cleveland, this game is the lowest total of all time of recorded
32 points.
Over under totals, right? This is the lowest that they've ever recorded. I don't want to lean in to that game, and I don't remember the 4th one because Drake London stood out so much. I don't even know if I heard
Hollywood Brown,
Trace McSorley. I have to play Hollywood Brown in a league. It's my only choice, but I'm taking Drake London out of those 4. He looked good with Desmond Ridder last week. They had the bye week to prepare. Against Baltimore's back end has not been overwhelming this year, not like we've seen in the past. And so I like Drake London. No Kyle Pitts. In these rookies, we've seen that before, right? They go to rookie training camp. They start to connect a little bit better.
Right.
Desmond Ridder came in. He was this leader in the clubhouse type of guy. I don't know. I like Drake London out of those 4, though.
So he asked me this earlier in the day, and you're like nailing everything that I said. I told him to go with Drake London.
That's right.
He had 70 yards on 7 catches last week with plenty of volume. I did mention the Ridder connection because of that rookie mini camp, and we saw a highlight play. I don't know if you remember this, but going into the season, everyone was talking up Drake London because of this highlight Moss type of catch that he made against one of their corners. AJ Terrell, I believe, is who it was. And, it was pretty much, I said, throw Brown out, throw out MVS. I'm not a fan of that play at all. So if you're looking at DPJ, who's been a favorite of Deshaun Watson, really his 2 best games have come with Watson under center. That total is important to note. So Drake London really is the best option, and that's who I would roll with in that situation too.
Well, we are set together on that. I've got let's answer Lee's question here in the chat. Ramondre Stevenson or Michael Pittman in the flex. I'm Stevenson.
Ramondre season, baby.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter how bad the Patriots offensive play calling is when Stevenson gets the ball. It's not every play, but he's got such big upside playability that I'm going to put him in every time. And Michael Pittman with Nick Foles, we haven't seen that quite. Well, we haven't seen it at all, I guess. Definitely not enough to make me feel like I want to play him over Ramondre.
For sure. And not to mention Damian Harris is still nursing injuries. Like, really good chance he doesn't suit up this weekend. Ramondre season.
And then I've got one more. I got one on Twitter from today. I'll try to increase this. He says, who wins? I'm Rock Hard Monster. And should I fix my lineup? Let me zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, let me open this up here so I can chime in. Rock Hard Monster. My God.
Yeah. Can you see this? Well, he's got Mahomes, Diggs, Hopkins, Henry, Pollard, and he's going up against Burrow, Chase, Cooper, Pacheco, Barkley, Kittle. He's got Dalton Schultz at tight end. It looks to be a close one. I think that it's kind of odd. Like B Squad has a little bit of a, dynamic with Pacheco. So maybe Pacheco scoring, taking the points away from Mahomes or vice versa. But for me, you've got Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
And just really
and Diggs.
good spots. Got Steph Diggs in a great spot against Chicago. I think this is, Chase always has the opportunity to blow up, but against the New England defense, it's going to be a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
I don't like Amari Cooper that much this week against the Saints. So I like his chances here. I don't think I give it the 62-38 chance that whatever this one that he's in gives him. It's mostly based on projections, right? I think it's probably closer to a 55-45 type of win, but I do like his team a little bit better.
I think another X factor for his team here is the defense as well. You're looking at Buffalo against Chicago or Philadelphia against Dallas, which, don't get me wrong, the Eagles defense has been phenomenal. But that's going to be a huge difference in points because I don't think the Chicago Bears offense is going to score nearly as much as what the Dallas Cowboys are going to be able to do this weekend. And, Stephon Diggs against that team as well. You got Patrick Mahomes maybe taking away stuff from Isaiah Pacheco, as you mentioned. And that duo of running backs, I mean, it doesn't matter what Pacheco and Barkley do. I don't think there's anything they can do to score more than what Pollard and Henry are going to put up. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, maybe you worry about that a little bit with McSorley throwing the ball. I don't know that you have a ton of options here.
I was going to look at his bench. There's nobody on his bench, really. Van Jefferson, you can't trust. Jeff Wilson, Robert Woods.
Definitely not starting Robert Woods this year.
So, to answer the question, should I fix my lineup? I don't think there's anything to fix. I think
you're locked
write
in,
it out.
buddy.
Write it out and see what happens.
Yeah, you're locked in with that lineup. I like what you're throwing down there for sure.
That's what you get here. Bring it to us. We'll answer the questions. It's that easy. I said we shut it down. Hour and a half in for an hour.
Dang, time flies, buddy.
Rolling today, but a lot of good stuff. For me, I just want to end. I mean, we got all the stuff every time. There won't be a Rumbles of Red show this week with the holidays. I got family in town, but go see us everywhere. Find me on Twitter at TrevorS_FF. But most importantly, go enjoy whatever holiday you celebrate. If it's Christmas, absolutely Merry Christmas to you. If it's anything else, just enjoy some time with family this weekend. Enjoy some great football. Saturday is the day, but then we still get 3 games on Sunday as well. Enjoy the family time. Enjoy the football. And then, of course, follow us everywhere you can. Like, subscribe, all that good jazz.
Absolutely. We'll have one more episode coming out for the Fastest 40 this Friday. The Let's Chief-centric show will be coming out on Friday. That's already been recorded in preparation for the holiday. So apologies if the, information isn't 100% current. We do try our best here. But just to echo what Trevor said, spend some time with your families, get around safe. With the weather that's coming in across the Midwest in particular.
Across everywhere, it feels like, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be brutally cold this Christmas. Maybe you get a little bit of snow, but just drive safe, get there, arrive safely, wear your seatbelt, that whole thing, and enjoy your time with your family. It's always important to spend that time with your loved ones, especially when you get this time off from work. There's no excuse not to go hang out with the people that you care about. So happy holidays to everybody out there that's listening. And do not forget about that Saturday slate of games. You don't want to wake up, go about your day on Christmas Eve and forget that there's football at noon. Plug those guys in. It's way too late in the game to be missing out on starts.
That's right. Put your Thursday players out of your flex and get everything set Saturday morning. Wake up, get some coffee in you, set your lineups. It's game day Saturday.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Make sure you follow the show on Twitter at ADP Podcast _SR. Follow our presenter here, Stadium Rant, at Stadium Rant HQ. Your boys here will be tweeting out a lot of fantasy stuff moving forward. So enjoy.
I need to know everything. Who and the what and the where. I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them